The Galactic Academy of Unified Forces had trained soldiers from 47 species across 6 star systems. It had broken Krellian tank warriors, humbled Vexari telepaths, and once, famously, made a Thurvak berserker cry during the endurance trials. The Academy did not coddle. It did not apologize. And it absolutely did not bend its standards for anyone. Which was why Commander Kael Veyron, a Solorian male with a body built like a siege engine, was completely unprepared for what happened on day 1 of the physical integration module. The gymnasium floor was cold durasteel. The overhead lights burned pale blue, standard Academy lighting, calibrated to mimic the harsh fluorescence of a warship corridor. 23 cadets stood in a loose line, representing 11 different species. Some were tall. Some were armored by nature. Some had 4 arms or 3 legs or bioluminescent warning markings along their spines. And then there was Joe. Joe Mina Day was human. 5'4". Dark eyes. Brown skin dusted with old scars. She stood at the end of the row with her thumbs hooked in her belt straps, looking around the room with the calm, slightly bored expression of someone waiting for a bus. Commander Veyron studied his new cohort the way a sculptor studies raw stone, appraising, unsentimental. His gaze passed over the Thurvak twins, noted the Solorian exchange cadet, lingered on the Vexari female who was already sweating through her thermal suit. Then it landed on Joe. He had trained humans before. They were interesting. Fragile on paper. Wildly unpredictable in practice. But every intake cycle, he made the same calculation: this batch will follow standard protocol, no special accommodations, and we'll see who rises. Cadets, he said, his voice carrying the kind of authority that doesn't need to be raised. This module has one purpose: to establish your baseline. I need to know how much each of you can carry, how far, and under what conditions. Today's exercise is simple. He gestured toward the far wall, where a rack of weighted harnesses glinted under the lights. You will each select a harness. You will carry it across the field course outside. 3 kilometers. The terrain is uneven. The weather, as you may have noticed, is not pleasant. Outside, the Academy's outdoor simulation field was running a Death World protocol, gravity set to 1.3 standard, simulated cold wind conditions, ground terrain locked to Category 7 rough. It was designed to stress test cadets from high-gravity homeworlds. Take what you can carry, Veyron continued. No shame in a lighter load. The point is to know your body. Overreach on day 1, and you will injure yourself before the real training even begins. The cadets moved toward the rack. Joe didn't move immediately. She was reading the weight markers on the harnesses, her head tilted slightly. Veyron noticed. He walked over. Cadet, he said. Day, correct? Joe Mina Day, sir. Goes by Joe. The harnesses are labeled by weight increment. I recommend humans start at the 40-kilogram tier. Given standard human musculature and the environmental conditions today? Sir. Her voice wasn't rude. It wasn't challenging, exactly. It was just flat, with a question underneath it like a knife under a cloth. When you said carry what you can, did you mean your limit? Or mine? Veyron blinked. In 22 years of instructing, no cadet had ever asked him that. The limit I'm describing, he said carefully, is calibrated to your species' documented physical ceiling. Documented by whom? Medical xenobiologists. Species integration researchers. The Academy Physiological Database. The database built from controlled studies. She wasn't smiling. She wasn't smirking. She was genuinely asking. On humans who weren't from Death Worlds. Sir. Veyron's eyes narrowed. Your file says you're from New Cascadia. New Cascadia Colony, sir. Gravity 1.4 standard. Seasonal temperature range from -40 to +62 Celsius. We have predators that make Thurvac nightcrawlers look like pets. I've been hiking with weighted packs since I was 9 years old because the nearest medical station was 40 kilometers from my settlement. She paused. I'm not being difficult. I genuinely want to know if your number is for me, or for a laboratory version of me. The gymnasium had gone quiet. 22 alien cadets were watching a 5'4" human woman politely dismantle a commander's assumptions without raising her voice. Veyron looked at her for a long moment. What weight, he said finally, do you believe you can carry? Joe looked at the rack. What's the heaviest on there? 120 kilograms. That harness is reserved for Thurvac cadets. She walked over and picked it up. Not struggled. Not strained. She lifted it, settled it onto her frame with the practiced movement of someone who had been doing exactly this since childhood, buckled the straps with quick, competent fingers, and turned around. Ready, sir, she said. The Thurvac twins stared at her. One of them, Hyo-woo, the larger one, had not yet picked up his harness. Veyron stood very still. Then, quietly, he said, Field. Now. All cadets. She finished the course in 41 minutes. She was not the fastest. One of the Silurian cadets, built for endurance, beat her by 4 minutes. But Jo Mina Day finished a 3-kilometer rough terrain course in 1.3 gravity carrying 120 kilograms, and when she crossed the marker, she wasn't gasping. She was breathing hard, controlled, rhythmic, the breath of someone who had learned long ago how to ration oxygen in difficult conditions. Hyo-woo finished behind her by 7 minutes, carrying the same weight, visibly exhausted. He looked at her with something that wasn't quite respect yet, but was standing next to respect's door, knocking. Commander Veyron met her at the finish line. He had her file open on his datapad. He had been reading it during the course. New Cascadia Colony. Subsistence background. Registered Death World adjacent habitat. No formal athletic training. Self-reported pack experience, since I could walk. Cadet Day, he said. Sir. The Academy Physiological Database, he said carefully, is going to need an updated entry. Jo wiped sweat from her forehead with the back of her hand. Sir? You've just demonstrated a load capacity 30% above the documented human ceiling. He paused. I should have asked the right question before I gave you a number. She looked at him steadily. Most people don't. That's okay. It wasn't quite forgiveness. It wasn't quite correction. It was just a human being stating a fact about the universe as she had found it, matter of fact, without heat, the way you'd describe weather. Veyron made a note in her file. Then another. Then a third. By the end of the week, every species-specific weight recommendation in the module had been flagged for review. Jo hadn't complained. Hadn't demanded anything. She'd simply asked one question on the first day and then demonstrated the answer. At the end of the semester, when cadets were allowed one personal notation in their official academy record, Jo Mina Day wrote 4 words. Ask me. Then watch. Commander Kale Veyron, for the first time in 22 years of instruction, added his own note beneath a cadet's. This one redefines the ceiling every time someone shows her one. Somewhere across the galaxy, on a cold colony world with 1.4 gravity and 40-kilometer hikes between neighbors, a little girl was loading up her pack for the morning walk to school. She didn't know she was training. She was just going home.